It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Tonight's the night we'll make history.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
And Mendoza takes the snap, wants to throw it, fires it down the field. It's for Elijah Surratt. He makes the catch. Touchdown! Elijah Surratt, 17-yard pick for a TD. And Indiana's back on top.
'Cause I'll take any risk to tie back the hands of time.
Fernando takes it, back to throw, fires it down the field, and it is caught! Charlie Becker again! What a catch!
I know you feel these are the worst of times.
Daniel Jones is down. Daniel Jones can't even make it over to the sideline to be looked at.
He is seated on the turf, and he just slammed his helmet to the grass. An unfortunate update as Daniel Jones remains in the Colts locker room. He has been ruled out with an Achilles injury.
Our memories of yesterday will last a lifetime.
They're at the 18-yard line where they'll snap it to. It'll be a 28-yard field goal. Here's the snap. Fielding kicks the ball. It is wide! It is wide! Wide to the left! He missed it! And Indiana will take over the football! Saying back to throw again. Pressure comes, rolls to his right. Tries to run with it, throws it down the field. It is tipped up in the air, and that's the ball game right there. Indiana wins! Indiana has beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes, the number one team in the country. The Hoosiers have beaten the Buckeyes, and Indiana is going to the college football playoff, and they're going to get a bye. Unbelievable!
These are the best.
They are indeed for the fans of Indiana University, and Saturday night in Indianapolis, Indiana, rolling into Sunday morning, it was absolutely the best of times, and it is still unbelievable. The Indiana Hoosiers, the number one team in the land heading into the college football playoff, but as Charles Dickens said in A Tale of Two Cities, not two cities, but one in Indianapolis. And in The Tale of Two Cities, what do we hear? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the epic of belief, the epic of incredulity. It was the season of light and the season of darkness. In fact, that's where we are now as sports fans of football in Indiana. And I get it. If you are a Purdue fan, probably doesn't necessarily relate to you, although it's good news because Purdue dropping the biggest margin of loss in a non-conference game at home as the number one team in the history of college basketball, not a huge concern, truthfully, because I think Purdue will be just fine. But we don't talk about that so much. We don't talk so much about Indiana and Louisville getting out to a 16-0 run and Indiana getting blanked. Because the story today, two of them, the Indiana Hoosiers and what they did in beating the Ohio State Buckeyes. And, yeah, of course, every Ohio State fan you've ever met's like, yeah, whatever. I mean, Buckeyes didn't care, obviously. Ryan Day was okay. Indiana went out, and what Indiana did on Saturday night at Lucas Oil Stadium, and I think there were a lot of us that believed it was possible, but not probable. What Indiana did on Saturday night at Lucas Oil Stadium was come right out, and yes, the second play of the game, I think it was, when Caden Curry puts that hit on Fernando Mendoza and sends the message. That's how it's going to be now, big boy. Welcome to the big time. And in comes his little brother, and there's this hush again. Incredulousness, right? Incredulity. I can't even say the word. The nature of being incredulous, this disbelief hanging over. And then eventually Mendoza comes back, and suddenly it's the season of light for Indiana. And for Ohio State, what Indiana did in their front four was they came out and they said to Ohio State, we're going to punch you right back. How you like it, big boy? Welcome to the big time. This is not your grandfather's Indiana. This is not your father's Indiana. It's not even your big brother's Indiana. We are now dictating we're the big brother of the Big Ten, and we are punching you right in the mouth. And Ohio State, and you can tell me all you want that Ohio State played conservative or Ryan Day wasn't as worried about this game or it didn't mean anything to Ohio State. Didn't mean anything to Ohio State. Keep in mind, the last time Ohio State won the Big Ten title was during the COVID year where they changed a rule to put Ohio State in over Indiana so that they could go on and represent the Big Ten in the college football playoff. That's how long it's been since Ohio State has won a Big Ten title. But Ohio State, they tasted their own blood on their lip for the first time this season, and they didn't know how to react to it. They didn't know how to react to it. Ohio State, the Buckeyes, Indiana won that game. They came out and they punched Ohio State right in the mouth, and Ohio State was the one that looked like they weren't ready for the moment. They didn't know how to respond to it. And for all the talk about Indiana bright lights, what's Indiana going to do? It was Ohio State that wilted when it mattered most. And then we go into Sunday. A tale of two cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. If you want to say two cities, you'd say Indianapolis and then down in Jacksonville. For the Colts, it certainly has been a tale of two cities between when they play in Indianapolis and when they play down there in northern Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida. That's been a house of horrors all the way back to when they were winning Super Bowls. And Maurice Jones-Drew was running for so many yards, as Bob Kravitz famously said, the only thing that stopped him was the end zone kept getting in the way. Even Gary Brackett said he thought it was a good line. Because that's what it was like back then. And each time the Colts have gone down there, I remember once going down there and covering a game, and there was this weird swirling wind and this little like tornado of trash in the end zone of hot dog wrappers and napkins just flying around in a circle in the end zone. And that was the only thing that could get moving for the Colts on their end of the field. That's how it's been down there. And yesterday, what you saw now is a team and a franchise for the Colts that is in peril. And it's not good. It's not good. It's the season now of darkness. It was a season of light. It's now a season of darkness. And we'll find out today officially what we already know, but we'll find out perhaps what the plan may be. And we have a big show lined up, by the way. My name is Jake Query, Eddie Garrison, who put together that fabulous intro. Thank you to Eddie for that. Joining me on the show today as well, it's Query & Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. As I understand it, today we've got a couple of IU guests, and then probably we'll talk some Colts as well. Eddie, if you could, please run down for me the lineup in terms of the guests for today.
Bottom of the hour, we will have the guy who was on the call of that Big Ten championship win for the Indiana Hoosiers. Don Fischer will join us at 12:30. At the top of the hour, Mike Chappell will join us. What does the future of the Colts look like now, Jake, with the injury to Daniel Jones? How significant is said injury? Hopefully we have an answer by then, and we can discuss that with Chap. And then your friend, Jake, I know you reached out and you got him on, I believe, yesterday afternoon. Bill Benner would join the show. He was in attendance at the Big Ten championship game, and he is one of the biggest IU football fans that you know for sure.
No question. Okay, so let's start with, because, and I get it, I'm going to go in order of chronology. Chronologically speaking, the most recent thing first, because Fish is going to join us just about 20 minutes from now. Here is my concern now for the Colts. We can sit here and break down the game yesterday and the nuances and what happened on this play call or that play call. We can go over that all we want. But I go back to, again, precedent, right? I'm a guy that believes in precedent. And when you saw Daniel Jones go down, and unquestionably it's an Achilles injury, and I think we can all say, I'm not a doctor. I'm going with assumption here until we hear official word. But clearly it would appear as though he has a ruptured or torn Achilles and is going to be out for the rest of this season and that would take him into next season, probably into next November or December before he is able to play again. It would make perfect sense, unfortunately, to then prognosticate that Daniel Jones has now played his final game as an Indianapolis Colt. And that's where I go back to yesterday was a really bad day for Chris Ballard. A really bad day for Chris Ballard. It's a bad day in general when you're talking about injuries to players. You're not – that's the fault of no one. It just is. It's the fault of no one. So it's not the Colts' fault that Daniel Jones got hurt. Yeah, he's had some health challenges over the course of his career, but it's not their fault. But precedent. When you look at Daniel Jones on the field banging the turf with his helmet, you all thought it. You all did. You all thought of Tyrese Halliburton banging the floor in Oklahoma City. And you thought to yourself, what is with the bad luck in Indianapolis? And when it comes to luck, I go back to precedent. When Andrew Luck was a rookie for the Colts, he came out and he was a generational talent. And he was a generational talent to the point where in order to facilitate for him to play right away, you released, because there was question about the health of Peyton Manning, and you released the greatest player in the history of this franchise and probably the greatest athlete, civically speaking, in terms of spotlight in the history of this town. And did that create now a curse? Did that suddenly create a season, meaning a long period of time of darkness in this, the tale of two cities? I don't know about that. But what I know is this. Andrew Luck shows precedent, because when Luck had that rookie year where everything off the field, you had the Chuck Pagano situation, you had Bruce Arians that came in as the interim head coach. He's a quarterback whisperer. He had been Peyton Manning's quarterback coach. He is a guy that jump-started careers of quarterbacks over the course of his career. And now all of a sudden you have this partnership with Andrew Luck and Bruce Arians. And they are off and running, and everything is going perfectly. And they win double-digit games, and they get in the playoffs, and Andrew Luck is a young player, and the Colts then made a critical error. I don't blame Ryan Grigson for it. I don't. I know it's common knowledge, common perception, common thought in this town to blame everything on Ryan Grigson. But I think there was a lot of Jim Irsay in his ear, rest his soul. And so what the Colts did at that point is they pushed in too early. They organically did not let it grow with Andrew Luck and allow for the seeds around him to grow organically and get everything on the same timeline. And they pushed all in, and they mortgaged their future, and they mortgaged the growth of young players by going out and getting Eric Walden and Ricky Jean-Francois and Gazder Sherrillis and all of these players, and Andre Johnson and Frank Gore. Not all of this was in the same offseason, but over the course of a short period of time, they pushed in too early, and they didn't build properly the foundation, the basement, to make sure that there were no cracks and leaks that could take place anywhere in the house. And they pushed in too early. And Chris Ballard, and I understand it, and the time was now for Chris Ballard because we're in, year 9. I get it. But when you got Daniel Jones and you started out 7-1 and you thought to yourself, we might have something here, before you could and I will give Chris Ballard a ton of credit in this regard. He saved a little bit here because Daniel Jones is not under contract next year. Unfair to say that you're going to just completely dispatch and throw away a guy that's coming off a ruptured Achilles, but it is a business. And if there's one silver lining, it's the fact that the Colts have not signed. Can you imagine if they'd signed Daniel Jones right now and they're on the hook next year for $30 million and the guy's going to be sitting having his leg elevated for the year? But at the quarterback position now, this is a franchise that is absolutely at a crossroads, and quite frankly, they're screwed because they pushed in too early, and they pushed in too early in the form of giving up not one, but 2 first-round draft picks for Sauce Gardner, who might still be a fabulous player and might still be an unbelievable talent for them for the next 3 years. But he's going to cost them a ton of money, and he cost them not 1, but 2 first-round draft picks. And you know what makes a first-round draft pick incredibly valuable? A franchise that doesn't have a quarterback. And maybe they do in Anthony Richardson. But time was what Anthony Richardson most needed, and reps. And they punted away from that to go with Daniel Jones. Understandably so. The play merited that decision. But Anthony Richardson then doesn't get reps and then goes into an injury now that we have no idea if and when he even comes back from that. Not his fault, but reality. So where do the Colts find themselves now? They find themselves 8-5. They find themselves, just like Eddie Garrison brilliantly noted last week, in the form of Huey Lewis. They find themselves now on the schedule, just like from the heart of rock and roll. Seattle, San Francisco, 2. That's the next 2 games. And then you come back and you round off the AFC South with Jacksonville, and then you got to go to Houston, who last night passed by on the right-hand side right beyond the Colts. And that's where they stand right now, and that's the situation that is difficult because you went from being 7-1 and finding yourselves in perfect position, and lo and behold, you pushed all in. And look, I get it. It's for Ballard, it was you got to go now probably, right? But when you pushed in and you made that move, you took a gamble. You took a gamble. And yesterday, it blew up. And not only did you watch your quarterback not be able to get off the field, but you had a quarterback on the other side who is an average quarterback in the NFL that is above average every time he plays the Colts that you couldn't get off of the field himself in Trevor Lawrence. And, Eddie, the reality is this. Chris Ballard, and the one thing that he has routinely pushed in on, and tried to go back to is pass rush for that defense, and they didn't have it yesterday.
Been talking about it the last 3 weeks, Jake. Only 20 quarterback hits in the last 5 games. Yesterday, 0 hits, 0 sacks on Trevor Lawrence. Zilch, nada, nothing.
So the things that were built, the foundation.
The only time his jersey got dirty was when he was on the ground taking a knee or he was, running and sliding. That was the only time Trevor Lawrence was on the ground.
The reality is this. The thing that the Colts was supposed to be their bread and butter yesterday, the trenches, the pass rush, Liatu Latu, Kwity Paye, those in which they'd invested. Those things yesterday didn't present or show themselves. And on the other side of that, the thing that in the future you need to use your first-round picks for, the quarterback now is suddenly that position of that much more priority, and you don't have those picks because you traded them for a corner. It's why I was flippant about that trade at the time. Sauce Gardner may be an unbelievable player, don't get me wrong. I mean, he might be Deion Sanders. He may turn out to be one of the most popular. He may be Bob Sanders around here. But what good is that going to do if you are having a team that is being quarterbacked either A, by Anthony Richardson, who you're still trying to find out whether or not you want to extend him in the final year of his contract when he's coming off an orbital eye fracture, B, you're bringing back Gardner Minshew or the corpse of Jake Browning because you're that desperate at the quarterback position, or C, you are starting a rookie quarterback that you drafted in like the second or beyond round, or D, Riley Leonard. Those are your only options. Those are your only options right now as to where things stand. Now, the other big story in football, a tale of two cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. In this town, from a college football standpoint, yes, I know you have Purdue. But Reversible jacket people, Indiana, Notre Dame fans, etc. The college football playoff ranking, Indiana gets in. They're the number 1 seed. They're on their way to Pasadena. And if you're going to the Rose Bowl and you've never been there before, which, if you're my age, there'd be no reason as an Indiana fan to have ever been unless you went and saw them in the regular season a year ago. But if you're going to the Rose Bowl, here is the Jake Query advice for you. It is an unbelievable venue. It is the most beautiful climate in the country. It is such a historic place that when you walk up and you see the big neon that just says Rose Bowl, and you see the palm trees and you can see the mountain in the horizon, it is an emotional event. And I'm being totally serious there. I went for a music concert and it was awesome. I can't imagine going to see your favorite team that you never thought you would see in a postseason game playing in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, where it's going to be 72 with no humidity and a slight breeze going. I don't know if you know this or not, Eddie, but in Southern California, notably San Diego, but in this case Pasadena, that's what it's like 363 days a year.
Really?
Yes. But if you are going, here's my advice for you. Number 1, if you have a chance to pre-select your tickets, buy as close to the aisleway as possible. Because at the Rose Bowl, at least along between the end zones, the seats, the aisles are literally like 55 seats across. So if you're like, oh man, I got seat 28 in section 24, guess what? You literally have 27 people to your left and 27 people to your right before you go get a Coke or use the bathroom. And it's like an airplane. It is the tightest, most compact. In 1922 or whatever year the Rose Bowl was built, everyone looked like Emmanuel Lewis. And it was built like that. And you're walking, you're climbing over people. It's like getting off an airplane. So if you're going as an Indiana fan, take some sort of a seat cushion. Absolutely go. Absolutely go. And enjoy and soak in every moment of it, but take a seat cushion. But for Notre Dame, you're not going to the Rose Bowl. You're not going to a game at all. And I understand the frustration from Notre Dame, but the reality is this, and we're going to get much more into this over the course of the show. Forever, college football has been begging, pleading, and prodding Notre Dame to join a conference. And Notre Dame forever has said, we don't need to. And forever, Notre Dame's been right. But finally, the chickens came to roost, where the power was in the hands of college football to say, we've been telling you forever that if the day ever comes where you need to spend your credibility card and ask for a favor, that favor is going to come in the form of you having a card in your hand that says you're a member of a conference. And if you don't have that, then too bad, so sad, your dad, you're out. And that's exactly what happened. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying that's right. That is 100% what happened. 100% what happened. And Notre Dame has only themselves to blame if that's the case, because they've been told forever that that day was going to come, and it finally did. But as for Indiana, the number 1 team in the college football playoff rankings, getting a bye, now sitting and waiting for the winner of Alabama and Oklahoma. And the guy who was on the call, not just for basketball, but for football as well, who deserves every flower coming his way for his loyalty and his tenure as the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joins us next.
It's Monday. It's 12:30. It's Fish.
And Mendoza takes the snap, wants to throw it, fires it down the field. It's for Elijah Serrani. He makes the catch. Touchdown! Here's the snap. Fielding kicks the ball. It is wide. It is wide. Wide to the left. He missed it. And Indiana will take over the football. It's 3rd down and 6. Fernando takes it, back to throw, fires it down the field, and it is caught! Charlie Becker again! What a catch! Indiana has beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes, the #1 team in the country. The Hoosiers have beaten the Buckeyes, and Indiana is going to the college football playoff, and they're going to get a bye. Unbelievable!
Dawn, I'm glad you decided to stick around and so you could see this, because you are a legend in this state.
The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joining Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Well, my husband wants to do something. He wants to sing that damn song. I said a 1, a 2, and you know what to do.
The Indiana Hoosiers are the undisputed, unblemished Big Ten football champions and the #1 team in the land. And the guy that has been there for every step of the way throughout this journey, from the depths, as I talked about with the Tale of Two Cities, right? The depths of darkness to the season of light. Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers, joining us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. And Don, I'm going to begin with this. I know, and I'll give you all the credit in the world, because you are the one guy from the get-go when it comes to Kurt Signetti. There was never really a doubt in your mind as to what the ceiling was going to be for this team and how impressed you were. But if you could, for me, Don, just summarize, I guess, the emotion, or not just for you, but just for that building and for that fan base, of seeing it all collectively come together on what was literally an unbelievably special night at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Well, the culmination, of course, was the 3rd down pass that Fernando Mendoza threw to Charlie Becker, who made a terrific catch, and the throw was perfect. At that point, you knew this game was going to belong to Indiana, and I have my twin brother in Salt Lake City calls me up the next day and says, "You guys were a little bit too giddy there the last minute and a half. Something could have happened." I said, "No, it can't, because Signetti is our coach." And at any rate, I can just tell you from my perspective, of course, hugely emotional ball game. Great win for Indiana athletics, but more importantly, a tremendous win for the Hoosier Nation. A group of people, and I'm not talking about everybody that's jumped on board here in the last, couple of years now. I'm talking about the people who bought season tickets for year after year after year, back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, people who have been coming to Indiana football games forever. And for me, those are the people that, and I'm not saying that the people who have jumped on board shouldn't be there. They should be there. But my point is, the people that have gone through this for all these years and the struggles that Indiana football has had, that to me is the most important faction of folks that I want to thank, and stay hanging in there and staying with us and going through all of what we've gone through, and still continue to buy tickets and spend the money that it took to watch football in Indiana and to support football in Indiana. And those are the people that I feel the best for.
Don, Bill Benner's going to join me coming up in about an hour. I mean, he's a guy that sat through countless numbers of sleet storms watching Lorenzo White run for 260 yards and, on and on, right? I mean, and,
right.
And it's those folks, right? And I think also about, and I've mentioned this on Friday, and you and I have talked about this. Terry Hepner was a guy that took that Indiana job and had this belief of kind of what Kurt Signetti has delivered. And I don't mean that to say one is that, they're two separate men. I understand that. But Hepner had this belief of like, no, this is where this program could go. And I think most of us probably thought he was a little bit crazy back then. And then unfortunately he got sick and he never got a chance to see it to fruition. And I'm watching that on Saturday night, and that's what made me so happy for Kurt Signetti, was the fact that here's a guy that came in with his own vision and his delivery of his own vision, but it was parallel with that vision and belief that we had seen preview of before. And I never thought I'd see it, Don, but that to me is what made it so special, was the number of people there, and there were those people that believed that was possible. And even still, I'm not going to lie to you, Don, when you said unbelievable, I thought to myself, no, I still don't believe it, right? I mean, it was that incredible.
It was. There's no question about it. And look, all I can tell you, and you're right about Terry Hepner, he knew he could get this program turned around, and he never got that opportunity because of the glioblastoma cancer that he suffered, brain tumor, and died in June after his second season. And to me, that's heartbreaking because, and I know his son Drew was at the ball game on Saturday, and my wife told me about it yesterday, and I started blubbering because I when I think of Terry Hepner, all I can do is get emotional.
Well, I know what he meant to you, Don. I mean, I wasn't there firsthand, but you can hear it. And I think that for those that don't know, anybody that was around him would understand why you feel that way, right? And I feel like, and it's like Kurt Signetti walks and exudes the energy and the confidence that Terry Hepner tried to introduce to people. That's the best way I can say it, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And that's the way to put it, because Hep was a guy that believed in Indiana football. And he I know he knows he could have turned it around, and he would have done it had he lived, but he did not. And Kurt Signetti has followed whatever his vision was, whatever vision that Terry had, he's followed that up, and you put it perfectly. That's exactly the way I feel about it.
Don, when you look at, I thought it was interesting after the game. Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, is our guest, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. When Kurt Signetti said, and he kind of flippantly said it, which I enjoyed, but he said, now I got 2 weeks to get these guys to turn around and refocus. and
yeah.
I had to laugh because I thought to myself, I don't know that I have seen a football team that has more in step, bought into everything his coach said, to the point where, are they going to go in and win the Rose Bowl? I don't know that. But what I do know is this: I don't think they're going to go in and shoot themselves in the foot and not show up, because that's just been – you'd be an idiot at this point to think anything other than Indiana is going to go put their best foot forward, right? And, were you able to see anything after the game and the celebration, et cetera, that was any different in terms of their standard operating procedure from the way he's always done things?
No, I mean, here's the thing. He did allow his team to stay out there in the field and celebrate it, which you would expect that any coach would do that. And so everything that I saw from Kurt Signetti post-game, he had all kinds of responsibilities with the media. Fox interviewed him, of course, and of course the Big Ten Network interviewed him, and he had to do all these other things involved in that. But the other thing about that is he took time at we were on the air for about 45 minutes after the game. We're usually about 20 minutes after a ball game in normal circumstances. It was at least 45, maybe 50 minutes that we were still on the air after the ball game was over with. And he finally got to us. And I knew he would if he had the time, if he had the opportunity. And he finally got to us and got to talk to our people on the air and the Hoosier Nation, so to speak, that listens on the radio. So I just think the guy is first class in every way. He's the greatest coach I've ever been around in the sense of what he's accomplished. And without doubt, I think this is a phenomenal run for Indiana football that we've never seen before. It's historic in every way, and it's a renaissance for the program. And without question, I can't wait for the rest of this season to fill itself out, because I think fans are going to be just as excited about what we're about to see in the college football playoff as they were through this 12-win season.
It's funny, Don, when people say, is so-and-so the best player of the century? And you think, oh, gosh, I forget, we're only a quarter of the way through this century, right? I mean, when I think century, I still think the 1900s, right? What he's done is, I don't care whether you're talking 1900s or 2000s, it's the greatest college football coaching job that I think anybody walking the planet right now has ever seen. We've never seen anything like this. Now, having said all of that, do you feel, Don, that there is still that there are still wrinkles to this football team that can be presented or new looks that they can come up with for the playoffs? Or are they at the point now of this is who we are, this is what we do, and we're confident in the way we do it, and we don't need to readjust game plans?
Well, every game plan needs to be adjusted. There's no doubt about that because of who you're playing. So that factors into it. But here's the thing. It's not going to change philosophically, and it's not going to change process-wise for this Indiana football team. That's just a fact. He's been like this since he's gotten here, and I trust everything that he does in that sense. His game plans are ridiculously good, and I say that because I'll tell you who I thought was the best offensive coordinator Indiana's ever had, and that was Kalen DeBoer. Now, how long ago was that? Not that long ago, right?
Right.
But here's the thing about Kalen DeBoer. He did a tremendous job here at Indiana in one season, the COVID season, with Michael Penix. And what he produced in that year was astonishing to me because I thought, this guy really knows what he's doing. And I still think that Kalen DeBoer is a great football coach. And he's getting all kinds of guff at Alabama from the fan base because they've lost 3 times, that kind of thing. And the fact that they made the college football playoff is in a lot of people's minds is very, very, I don't know what the right word would be, but a lot of people would say they don't deserve to be there. I don't know if they should or not, but I will say this, that Indiana is capable of beating anybody they play in this college football playoff because Kurt Signetti's that good. And if we played Kalen DeBoer or if we played Kirby Smart or whoever the coach is, I will not take anything away from Kurt Signetti's ability to dominate that football game with his thinking process and how he goes about things. The only way Indiana's going to get beat in this college football playoff, in my mind, is because the other team has more talent. Because Indiana's talent is not what it is to some of these programs, but the coaching is beyond it.
Don, I got a kick out of it. I got a good buddy of mine went to James Madison, and James Madison obviously got into the college football playoff as well. And he sent me a text that said, "It's great to be a JMU fan because we have 2 teams in the Big Ten, in the college football playoff. After the Big Ten title game, because obviously some of the great players and that's, to me, that's such a tribute to Kurt Signetti, because when you look at players that started at James Madison and now they're beating they're key players in beating Ohio State, for crying out loud, in the Big Ten title game, and so much of that just comes down to coaching, belief, all the things we've talked about. I wanted to ask you this: you had the ability, and you did both games, which was, you're the Lou Gehrig, right? You're the Iron Horse of broadcasting because you did both games on Saturday. You should probably have some sort of a throat lozenge endorsement. But I will, for those that don't know, Don, and I got to give you the ultimate tip of the cap, because people will say, well, did his voice hold out? That is mentally exhausting. I mean, honestly, doing broadcasting for that long and having to move that quickly for games back-to-back is unbelievable. Having said that, in doing basketball and football, you have seen 2 legendary coaches in Indiana. A lot of coaches, but 2 legendary ones, in Bob Knight and Kurt Signetti. The reason I bring it up, Bob Knight was a coach that when you went into a game, you thought to yourself, the other team might have players, but they're not going to be more prepared than Indiana from an X's and O's standpoint. The personalities aside, do you ever see or feel similarity in terms of listening to the coaches, in terms of their preparation talk between those 2 guys that you've had to do so many pregame shows with?
Well, no, I don't see a difference. Coach Knight is demanding on players, and basically anybody in his program was demanding on those people to be what they should be and what they can be, that kind of thing. You get the same thing from Kurt Signetti. He hires the right people, number one, because he vets them all. He knows who they are before they get there. And he knows what he's going to get from those people, and they produce for him. And that's the trust he has in the people that he gets, because he, like I said, he vets everybody that's in the program. So, and Bob Knight did exactly the same thing. He wanted guys that were going to buy into his philosophy, his thoughts, how to play the game, those kinds of things. He did it with players. He did it with coaches. He did it with the people that he surrounded himself with. So yeah, they're so much alike in that vein. They're totally different personalities, and I say totally different only from the standpoint that Coach Knight, as everybody knows, was so controversial in so many different ways. And Kurt Signetti, I don't think, is in that context. His personality is different in that way. And then how he handles players is different than what Bob did. That's not a negative on either guy. It's just the way it was at the time that they were coaching, and it has been. And so those kinds of things change over the years too, but I don't think they ever changed with Coach Knight. And with Coach Signetti, after his 26 years, he was an assistant and learned a lot of things from a lot of different coaches, and then got his own programs at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and then at Elon, and then, of course, James Madison, and now Indiana. He doesn't vary from it. And in his philosophy and his thinking process and how he goes about running the program is as good as I've ever seen. And it's simply very simply like a lot of what Bob Knight did, because he ran the program the way he thought it should be run, and it was hugely successful, and vice versa with Kurt Signetti.
Okay, lastly, Don, I wanted to ask you this. There were a lot of people, understandably and rightly so, Kurt Signetti being one of them, that talked about how happy they were for Don Fischer to see that moment on Saturday night. So I'd like Don Fischer to say what individual or individuals, I realize the fan base in general is all-encompassing, but was there anybody specifically that you thought of as that game was ending that you thought to yourself, that's who I'm happy for?
Well, again, and there's no individual that I thought about that for. I thought about that for the Hoosier Nation. I really did. I wanted this program to take off at some point football-wise, and even when it got started early and looked like it might change, it has not in all those years. And that there have been a humongous number of people, coaches that I've enjoyed immensely at Indiana, guys that I had the greatest amount of respect for. Obviously, Bill Mallory and Bill Lynch and Terry Hefner and those type of people. I loved all those people. They were just great folks, and they were really good coaches. They just didn't hit it at the right time. And unfortunately for all of us, Hoosier Nation suffered because of that. And now it's changed completely. And that's why I'm really happy for the entire Hoosier Nation, because these people have gone through a lot over the years.
Well, Don, for the Hoosier Nation, you've been the town crier for many years, and that was more crying probably than actual town bugle blowing. But so the time is now, and celebrate it and enjoy it. And January 1st at 4 o'clock, you will be calling a college football playoff game in the Rose Bowl for the Indiana Hoosiers, and we certainly look forward to it. Always appreciate the time, Don, and certainly hope you were able to continue to enjoy what took place on Saturday.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jay.
All right, Don Fischer joining us, the voice of the Hoosiers. We'll come back, Mike Chappell, in about 12 minutes. There is one thing I wanted to play for you that I heard after the game on Saturday, and right then I just went, that's it. That's the reason. I'll let you hear it next. About 8 minutes from now. So, after the Indiana game, I saw this clip and I said to myself, this is it right here. This is how and why. When you think about football coaches and you think like, oh, okay, you know, their job is to go out there and they come up with a game plan and then they're on the sidelines and they're crouched over and their hands on the knees and they're watching the game and they're figuring out what's going to go on. And Kurt Signetti's got that little notepad and he's doing all that. And like, what in the world is he doing? Kurt Signetti was asked about the Indiana situation on third down in the pass to Charlie Becker with just over 2.5 minutes to go in the game. And listen to what he said in his explanation on Indiana going all out on that play.
When we started the drive, they had time and timeouts. You know, they had enough time with their timeouts for about 16 plays at the start of our drive. And then they used their timeouts and, you know, I wasn't going to play not to lose. We were playing to win. And the one thing, you know, we do spend a lot of time on the clock. How many plays are left in the game, things of that nature. We've kind of figured we had to get about 3 first downs. That's what I told the team. So you got to get a first down. I wasn't going to punt the ball back to them with 2 minutes to go and no timeouts. We had to give our guys an opportunity to make plays. We were getting on top of them at certain points in that game. And Fernando was throwing great deep balls, and it was a great play.
So this guy, during the course of a game, when everyone else is buttoned down and they're looking at it and they're like, oh, gosh, you know, maybe they should run the ball, maybe they should pass, whatever. He has the presence of mind in the course of a game to be able to look at the clock and immediately associate how many plays in the game are remaining and to be able to say, this game has 16 plays left in it. Or 20 later, he went on to say he thought that game had 20 plays left in it. And that he thought if they could have and run 16 of those 20 plays, it would run the clock down. Most people start thinking clock management with like 45 seconds left. This guy's doing it with more than 2 minutes, with 3 minutes to go in the game. He knows to the finite point, give or take a play or two, how many plays are left in the game. That is absolute chess. That is chess. And if you wonder what it is that he's doing and why he is brilliant, there is your answer right there.
I go back to one of his first press conferences, Jake. I think, I don't know if it was Big Ten Media Day. I think it was there. They were talking about just like IU and how they were picked at the bottom. And like there was a lot of games that were decided by one score. He goes, look at my track record. Like, that's what I do. Like, I win these one-score games because we spend a lot of time researching how to manage the clock, how to win games late. And it's just really come to fruition in Iowa against Oregon, Penn State, and again on Saturday against Ohio State. You saw why they win games late in these one-score possessions.
I mean, I heard that, and I'm like, okay, that's the behind-the-scenes nuance. Mike Chappell next.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Here's an RPO, and it's an interception. And it's picked off by Devin Lloyd. Lloyd started right, cutting to his left. He's going to be chopped down around the 21-yard line by Josh Downs. Daniel Jones is down. Daniel Jones can't even make it over to the sideline to be looked at.
He is seated on the turf, and he just slammed his helmet to the grass in frustration.
Daniel Jones has an Achilles. Could be season ending. I don't have the full details on it, but we'll get more clarity on that. But it's not looking good.
Moore inside of the gun, ball in the right hash. And he's going to give off right side to Etienne. Slashes inside the 30. He's got an avenue. He's going to go down the right sideline into the end zone for a touchdown, untouched. Final score at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars 36 and the Indianapolis Colts 19.
We got everything we want in front of us still. It ain't like we got to go. So we got to get this thing cleaned up and get ready for Seattle. We got a big one on the road, and that's the message right there.
It is true that everything is still before them, but for the Colts, do not look in the rearview mirror because now have dropped 3 in a row, 4 of 5, and certainly there are question marks all over the place. Some of those questions we will address now with Mike Chappell, who joins us on the Java House Peel and Port guest line. Chap, of course, with CBS 4, WXIN, Fox 59, and the Dean of Colts Writers. Chap, I'm going to begin with, we'll start here. Clearly, I think we all are under the assumption, the understanding that we will get confirmation on the Daniel Jones Achilles injury, and pardon my ignorance on this, having been on the air for the last hour. Has there been any official word yet today?
No, it was my understanding he was supposed to get an MRI at noon.
Okay.
And for those of us who've had MRIs, they take about 30, 35 minutes. And then I have no idea how long it takes to read them. But when Shane Steichen said what he said last night from the podium, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows, right?
Right. So confirmation will be, the door slamming. But this is where they are. And it makes this a perfect storm that didn't turn out well for George Clooney, if you saw the movie. I don't know. I don't know what a worst case scenario might be than to be where the Colts are now, and how it's funny. Here, okay, I was Mr. Positive a minute ago on Twitter, on X, using the Athletics playoff simulator. They've still got a 30% chance of making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It drops to 25% if they lose at Seattle, and then if they win their last 3 games, they make the playoffs. So it is right there in front of them. But we talked last week that I had a hard time seeing how they came out of this death spiral with Daniel Jones, and playing well. And now without him, I just don't see it. You're asking a rookie to come in and play who was a developmental quarterback. He'll give them what he can give them, but it's just, I don't care what the odds are with all these simulators. It's just a tough road to go, and I just don't know how they do it.
Okay, Chap, let's get to this. Okay, a couple of angles here. I'm going to go piece by piece. We'll begin with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, and he is obviously out for the rest of this year. So the first question with that is about Daniel Jones, and that is he is a free agent. If there's one, I guess, and I hate to say this because I don't mean this as a knock on him personally, but if there is one silver lining, it's that the Colts had not yet extended him, so they're not on the hook to pay him for next year. Would you agree that this would indicate that probably Daniel Jones has played his last game as a Colt?
No, I would think it. Well,
or do you sign him and do you sign him for a dead cap year, knowing that eventually you'll get him back, and that's your answer?
That's the thing is, first of all, he lost his shot at a really good multi-year deal. He was going to make $50 million guaranteed, probably somewhere in that, whatever 3-year contract, whatever. And now I think you bring him back on one of those prove it contracts. So for a year, because it's like a 9-10 month ideally rehab, and that's ideal and position specific probably. Quarterbacks can probably do it, but that's the start of the season with no off season. So I think you bring him back because it'll be the best spot for him. But I don't know what your next 3 or 4 questions are, but then you still have to go out and get your quarterback.
Well, that's okay
in the off season, right?
So, because here's the thing. I mean, my personal thought, Chap, I guess I'll respectfully disagree a little bit here in the fact that I get if you want to sign him, the question is then the timeline on when he's even able to play again, right? And whether or not he's able to play next year at the level that you need. But the second question then would be for this year, is Anthony Richardson a possibility at some point to play? And secondly, when Anthony Richardson is cleared, does he automatically become their starter?
Well, cleared to practice and cleared to play are two different things. And as of last week, Shane Steichen told us that all that Richardson was able to do was work in the weight room. Because with that fractured orbital bone, you just can't be jarring the body around your head around. So and there's only 4 weeks to go. So if they open the window to practice this week, normally it's been 2 weeks or so to play. Then you got 1 game to go or whatever. I don't think the timeline works. I really don't. And let's say he's ready to go for the final game of the season in Houston. And everything probably will be decided by then as far as what you're doing and where you're going. I never thought he was going to play again anyway because of the injury and all that, and now I just don't see what the purpose would be, but to see what in the game, to see what in 2 games. First, I don't think he'll be medically cleared. I just don't. And then the timeline doesn't work, and I'm not sure how enthusiastic the team would be to put him back out there.
So does he come back then next year as the camp, as your opening camp starter?
God, my first reaction is no, because I think they showed this year they didn't think that was a viable option.
Correct. I mean, I would agree with that.
They meaning the coaching staff, I think. And then to say, well, and then can you imagine the backtracking?
But Chap, here's the thing: it wasn't a viable option at the beginning of this year because they had another option.
I know.
So
right.
Next year, and maybe Riley Leonard, maybe this is Brock Purdy 2.0, right? Maybe it's like, oh gosh, you know what, we have something here. Maybe it's Kelly Holcomb. Hey, this guy's not bad. Let's grow him, and maybe that gives you. But do they really do that next year? I mean,
no. No, what you threw a lot of things out there. First, I don't think Riley Leonard goes into next season as. Well, maybe he's the guy. And I don't want to dump on Riley Leonard at all. He was put in a really bad situation yesterday, which backups, that's the job of a backup. But I just don't see they view him as Brock Purdy. I just don't, or one of those late round or, picks.
Right.
But no, so I guess the timeline would be is instead of wanting to get Daniel Jones re-signed pre-injury, before he's a free agent, before the middle of March, whatever it is, you'd want to get that done. Now, there's no hurry to re-sign him. So your first priority, if everybody's back and all that, either way, I guess, is who's your quarterback going into the offseason? I don't know what the list is. Mac Jones, Kyler Murray. You want Kyler Murray here, really? But that's what you have. Jameis Winston. That's where you are again, and we saw how that worked last time. It doesn't unless you get Phillip Rivers for 1 year. So the first priority would be figuring out who your quarterback is, and then you can sign Daniel Jones to be almost a red shirt until October. And then he's your backup if you're the guy you bring in as your starter. It's just a mess, and what everyone will talk about, and we've all talked about, is who's in line to lead this group. What does Carly Ursay Gordon do? And that's not a simple question. It really isn't. You know, the easy answer is you blow it up. But there are circumstances that the fan base is not going to want to hear. But this is not going to be a slam dunk that you just blow it up.
Chap, if you're Alec Pierce, why would you come back?
Well, money for one thing.
I get it, but he's going to get that money elsewhere, isn't he?
He's going to get the money. Yeah, I understand. You'll be coming back to a place with a totally unsettled quarterback situation when you can go to, Buffalo. I mean, can you imagine him as Kansas City? Good point. Although I will say that, the old bird in the hand, if they come to him in March 1st and give him buku bucks, that's a really, really good point. Why you come back when you're a deep threat receiver, when you have no clue who your quarterback's going to be. Loyalty, I don't want to hear that. Any player that's loyal to where he gives a team a discount is not thinking straight. That's a good point, but I still think they make a hard push to re-sign him.
Okay. Chap, last week we went through, and believe you me, I mean, obviously when you're more in tune with this than I'd still get confused by this. I believe that you told us that when it comes to the DEFCON ranking, that DEFCON 1 was kiss your ear in goodbye, right? Wasn't that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and you said that, like you put it, I think their season at DEFCON 2.5 going into Jacksonville. They went down to Jacksonville. They lost. They now have Seattle, San Francisco 2 to quote Huey Lewis and Eddie Garrison upcoming. And then now you have your quarterback's gone. You've got a rookie in there that is learning on the job. What DEFCON are we on now?
1.5, just because, the bomb hasn't dropped yet. We make light of this because that's what we do. And the problem is people's, they're still playing and people's jobs are on the line. So I don't want to make too much light of it, but we're just being realistic. And it's just hard to see how this team comes out of this. And if you're not, if you're in the inside, you're locked in on Seattle, who might be the second best, first best. They may be the best team in the league right now, the way they're playing. And you're going on the road, and that's tough. So yeah, you try to stay somewhat optimistic, but then reality slaps you in the face. So if you're not Kevin Bacon is sort of that DEFCON 1 with Animal House, Stay Calm or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, there's so many little snippets, but I'm just being realistic, and I don't think they can take that approach at all inside the complex, because this is their job, and I'm not going to tell Quentin Nelson that this season is toast, because he'll end my life. But I just think realistically, it's hard to see a path forward for the next month, and it's really hard to get into Carly Ursay's mind and see what she sees as far as why this happened again. Is it Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen? Is it the injuries? And I could argue the injuries have been a major detriment, although they were, taking on water certainly before Daniel Jones went down.
Chap, my thing, I'm going to play contrarian here, okay? I'm doing this to point out both sides. It doesn't mean necessarily that I'm intentionally trying to be the bad guy. But with that said, Mike Chappell, my guest, by the way, Java House Peel and Pour guest line from CBS4 and WXIN. When you look at evaluating, for example, if the trajectory of the franchise should still be guided by the same person in Chris Ballard, the reality is, yes, the injuries, and I get it, but he somewhat mortgaged the future by taking a position with a player who does have injury history and committing to him by sending not one but two of the picks that are usually used. If that's the position that you need, that's where you get after it in a first round. They sent both of their next two first-rounders away to New York for a corner, not a pass rush, a corner. do you not look at that and say, or would you not be somewhat correct if you were looked at and say, I understand the gamble, but you knew the risk when you took it, and you lost the risk, and therefore we got to blow the whole thing up?
I understand that, and you're right. I think what's more damning personnel-wise is that Kwity Paye and Laiatu Latu
Correct.
have not been what they need to be. And that's
It was
and
a
that's
bad
personnel.
day for him yesterday because they lost the quarterback and they had no pass rush, right?
Yeah, 0 sacks and 0 quarterback hits. He dropped back 30 times or 32 times with a couple of scrambles. So that's what I'm saying. It's very and that's what Carly Ursay has to decide. She's got to, and I tell you, she's just not being visible so they can say, hey, look at the owners out there really involved. No, she's more dialed in now than her father was over the last couple of years for a lot of reasons. And she will probably be more analytical and be led by the brain more than by the heart than maybe her father would. So in whatever she decides, and I'm sure she will, she needs to sit up there and say, this is what we're doing, and this is why. And whether you agree or not, I think she's going to have very good reasons for what she does. Now, whether the fan base agrees or disagrees, that's part of being, in that seat as you deal with the bullets that come your way. So, but as easy as this decision might seem to be, if they end up, they'll find a way to win another game. I just believe that. So they finished 9-8. Then what? I mean, you've been 500 for the last 3 years, which isn't good enough. It just isn't. But this is really going to be interesting to see what her first major decision is. Either way, it's going to be franchise shaping. And if you blow it up with no first round draft picks for 2 years, can you trade back in the first round next year and get you've mortgaged whatever you can do to get up there? And if you blow it up, what do? You just can't get rid of 53 players. Who are your core players? Like you talked with the Alec Pierces, Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, on and on and on. That's why this is not just so easy as you nuke it and then start over next year. That's not the way it works. So this is. I would love to spend an afternoon just sitting in her office and listening to her discuss all these different scenarios. Because it's like I say with any player, the easiest thing is to get rid of him, and the hardest thing, and then the hard thing is to replace him. Well, now, factor that by 53, and I realize you can replace the bottom half of your roster. You can. There's always good players available, but those top 10, 12 players who mean everything, what do you do? And I tell you, like we always say, until you get the quarterback fixed, it doesn't matter. So priority one, once you decide what direction you're going, is who's your quarterback. And as we've seen, that's a tough decision when you're always reaching for somebody else's discards. They were discarded for a reason.
Chap, when you look, Eddie points this out, players that are free agents at the end of next season, okay?
Right.
Pittman, Taylor, Buckner, Nelson, Grover Stewart, Anthony Richardson, Josh Downs, all of those players, right? And then in addition to that, obviously you have the question at quarterback. They do have, like for Pierce, for example, I guess they could tag him, but I don't know how much that, we'll see whether that pays dividends. But it does feel like maybe this is the football gods saying it's time for a redirect, okay? If that's the case, when you look at the change in ownership, and Carly Ursay-Gordon, and I say this not because of just because of the fact that this is the first year that we have seen her at the helm, and yes, she has been around, and yes, she's been carrying the clipboard, and she's listening on the radio, and all of those things. If it comes down to it where she needs to make a decision as to the direction of the franchise, and she parts ways with Chris Ballard, is there a team of people you think that would consult with her as to who they would have their eyes on from around? I'm not saying that she wouldn't have her footprint or her ear to the ground on league wide, but she's not her father, who was around it for 45 years and knew everybody. She will eventually, but maybe not yet. Would there be people within the building that would be able to guide her through that process, or is it literally, I'm making this call?
Oh, I think she'd reach outside the building with the usual suspects, the Bill Polians, the Tony Dungy's, people like that she trusts. I assume she trusts those people. I think you have to go outside the building, and I have all the trust in the world with Pete Ward and people like that. But looking for a new coach or a GM, that's not their specialty. It would be, and boy, let's not get into those search groups at some, maybe there's more college or whatever. But no, she'll have 3 or 4 voices that she'll reach out to, and if that's the direction she goes, this won't be. That would be like, I'm the smartest person in the room. I don't need to listen to Tony Dungy or Bill Polian or whatever. I don't think that's her at all. You have to have confidence that you trust and will listen to. Not saying you just take their word. Knowing how I think she is, she's probably in her head is thinking, boy, if we do this might be the direction we need to go. I'm talking personnel. Names that she's got. Jim Irsay always told me that you've always got, in the right hand of your desk, you always had an index card with coaching possibilities and GM possibilities, because you never knew when you might need them. So this will not. It's like she didn't become an owner steward the day her father passed away. This has been in the works, whether it was a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, she's been working toward that. And if the time comes that she resets the franchise, it won't be, okay, now what do I do? No, she knows what she's doing, and she knows what her options are. The difficulty is going to be deciding whether it's option 1, 2, or 3. I'm not sure what 3 would be, because 1, blow it up, and 2 is to bring everybody back and go that way. So I believe he is up for it, but I don't think this will be the Irsay daughters' decision alone. They will reach out and they will talk with people who have been through this, who know a lot and have a great experience, and then they'll make decision whatever the decision is.
The quarterbacks that would be available as free agents for next season, Daniel Jones heads the list, but obviously we know the situation there. After that, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, former Colt Joe Flacco, and then Eddie right there, widow hands.
Kenny Pickett
in his little hands. Jimmy Garoppolo, Mitchell Trubisky, if that gives you an idea of what we're looking at.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's fair. I thought Mac Jones was going to be available, but I've not looked there. I've not done that yet. But that's our point. You name all these names, and that's the point. Where do you go to bring in? I guess it would be a stopgap until Jones gets ready. I don't know, but it's not enticing. So, and again, as we've talked, if you decide to reset and just start over, what's that process? 2 years? 3 years? This isn't NIL to where Kurt Signetti comes in and all of a sudden you're going to play for the national championship. Yes, you can buy players, but not quite like they do in college. So
if it's if we're doing the Kurt Signetti model, then that means the Colts hired the head coach of the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, and he brings half the roster with him, and they win the whole thing.
I know,
right?
I know. So again, as much as the simple answer is you blow it up, it's not simple. Well, no, that's simple to blow it up, but there are so many ways that you have to figure out. Well, then what? After the dust settles, then what? You get the frame of a house, and that's it. So and again, until you get the quarterback done, and it doesn't look to me like the 2026 draft was going to be all that great in quarterbacks after all. So where do you go? I don't know. I don't. And we'll all speculate about it, and it's interesting discussion, but it's not easy. The easy thing is to blow it up and start over. And then again, You've already had your fan base be frustrated and anxious over the lack of success over the last 10 years, and now they're going to say, but we can fix this. Just stick with us for 2 or 3 more years. And you're not building around Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning. You're building around what? You can read the names again. There's just nobody even remotely where you can say, this would be interesting. Who? Which one of those guys would you say, this will stir some interest? I didn't hear one name on there that you say, maybe. I didn't hear one name.
Chap, on the Mac Jones front, he'll be entering the last year of that 2-year deal he just signed this past offseason with San Francisco. So the Colts would have to trade for him if they wanted to go that route. And I know you talked about this with Jake, that at noon it was Daniel Jones having that MRI. You guys have to meet, as in the media, meet with Shane Steichen in a half an hour. So I would assume that is when we will find out the determination on the seriousness of the tear, if it's a complete tear or just a partial tear.
Yeah, I think we got Shane at 12:20 or at 2:20. I just would assume he's going to say he'll close the door on that, because to not do that, it makes no sense. And I'm telling you, a lot of injuries you don't know what it is really, with knees and all this. I think with an Achilles, he reached right down for the back of his leg.
It was classic, right? You try to take the 2 steps, then you go back down again.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
It's some of them you don't know. This one, I think I'm 99% sure. And the person I was texting last night is, well, that's what we think, but we're going to wait for the MRI, and that's when the MRI will come back and say this is what it is, and they move forward.
Mike Chappell, CBS 4, WXIN, Fox 59. We'll have it all covered as we continue with this story as it develops. And then tomorrow night, it is my favorite night of the year. Nobody but Chap and I probably care, but it is I believe it's tomorrow night is our dinner. Correct, Chap?
6 o'clock. I will be there. I would walk from Beech Grove to there, and I can't walk very well, so I always look forward to that.
I do as well. Chap, we look forward to seeing you then, and I appreciate it as always.
We'll talk at you later, guys.
All right,
Be
sounds
well.
good. Mike Chappell joining us. He will get his Coors Light on ice tomorrow when we have our and I have always said, to me, it is the thrill of all thrills, the honor of all honors, that what began with Robin Miller putting together a dinner with all of the former Indianapolis Star writers, and I began my time in Indy media-wise in a job that Robin helped facilitate as one of the grunts on the Agate Bureau. I basically took in box scores and typed them into a computer that ended up going on the back page of your sports pages. And even with that, they were always gracious enough to include me, and I just sit like a fly on the wall and listen to the legends tell stories. And tomorrow night we do that.
Can you tell me the score of South Dakota State and Wyoming? I need to know if they covered the 13.5.
We used to get a lot of that. Oh, yeah, you happen to know that. It's always like 2 in the morning. One of the guys that helps put together that dinner has sat through more Indiana football games over the last half-century than anybody should care to admit. And he's one of the most influential and powerful writers of this town has seen. Bill Benner joins to celebrate next. Obviously, he has been a guest on this program for many a reason over the course of the years. Obviously, a veteran to the Indianapolis media, both from a radio and print standpoint, and has worked tirelessly to champion this city and its franchises for many, many a year and decade. But there is no sport and no team, I don't want to speak for him, but I'm going to do it nonetheless, that I think Bill Benner would tell you that he was more anxious to see and more thrilled to see finally break through and get their due than the Indiana football Fighting Hoosiers. Because when you think about those days when Blake Ezor were running for like 5 touchdowns and, you know, Eric Hunter was carving them up in whatever it might be in 40-degree sleet storms in November with a 2-5 team, you'd see like 3 people in the crowd, and one of them was Bill Benner. And so I said, you know what? I got to have him on to give him his flowers and give him his moment. And he joins us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, the former Indianapolis Star columnist, among many other responsibilities he's had. Bill, how are you?
It's hard to be better. You know, I'm trying not to. I can't wipe the smile off my face. Still trying to get my voice back from Saturday night. Enjoying the euphoria of the moment. Spent the morning with high blood pressure as I made our flight, hotel, and ticket reservations for the Rose Bowl, and just thoroughly enjoying this moment and what it means both in the now and both in the history of Indiana University athletics.
Okay, let's go to the history of it, Bill. And I want to begin with this for those that are unfamiliar. You have been going to Indiana football games for a very, very long time. You've seen a lot of bad football, truthfully. When you look back over the, you know, just looking through the photo album of games you've attended, what is the point where you say to yourself, if I could go back to that moment and get in the ear of Bill Benner in that moment and say, in 2025, you're going to be the number 1 ranked team in the country going to the Rose Bowl, what was the low point? What is the one point where you say to yourself, that was where it most tested me, whether or not I wanted to continue to torture myself?
I think it was not till Kevin Wilson, I believe, was the coach, and Indiana lost to Rutgers, and I think it was like 56-52, something like that. And I don't remember the exact year, but it was, 2014, 2015, something like that. And I remember getting in the car with my lovely wife, Sherry, who was sat there next to me during all of this. And I said, we're not going to listen to Fish. We're not going to listen to the post game. We're just going to turn off the radio. And I need to be silent until at least we get to 465. And that was probably the moment where I wondered if there ever would be a moment like the one that occurred Saturday night. And I know I speak for so many fans, so many of us who have been there for the years. And, Jake, I had to suspend my fandom during my years as a sports writer and columnist for the Indianapolis Star. Sometimes I was able to express my frustrations and anger in print and opinions about the direction or misdirection of the IU football program. But now to see how it's evolved so quickly under Kurt Signetti, it's just, for an old journalist, it's beyond, I don't have the words. It's just amazing.
I'll tell you what, Bill, and by the way, the game of which you're speaking, October 17th of 2015, Indiana losing 55-52 to Rutgers.
There you go.
And actually, what's funny is you mentioned that for you was like the darkest moment. I asked your wife the same question, and she said, well, actually, the greatest moment in Indiana history was the time Bill didn't want to talk in the car for 40 minutes. And I said, yeah, that's probably right. So it worked out, but, it's a nice balance there. Bill, we're driving down Saturday, and Shannon says to me, she's a sports fan. She gets and understands sports, but she said, now, Jake, just put this in perspective for me, like just this Kurt Signetti and all this. And I said, Shannon, and Bill, I want you to tell me if you think this is hyperbole. I said, it literally, Shannon, would be the equivalent if you consider that for 50 years, if the Pacers went 25 and 55 every year, and maybe they had a glimpse for 3 or 4 seasons where they made a playoff and got swept in 3 games by the Nets or something. But for the most part, they have been the downtrodden of the NBA for a lifetime. And then they just decide to do something different, and they hire the head coach of the Reno Renegade of the G League or the CBA, and the guy comes in and brings with him 2 of his best players from Reno, and they literally turn around, and in the first year they go 55 and 25, and in year 2 they're 60 and 20, and they're the number 1 seed in the playoffs. That literally is what we're talking about, is it not?
Well, it is. It's one of the most incredible sports turnarounds, not in just in major college history, but in sports history. To imagine where Indiana was, and again, they've had their moments. I thought Tom Allen was going to be the right guy, but that flame burned brightly for a short time, and then it went out, and we returned to being IU football. Kevin Wilson had a couple of moments. Cam Cameron had the greatest offensive player in the history of the Big Ten, Antoine Randall. I thought that was going to be the moment, and they never even went to a bowl game. Certainly under Bill Mallory. There have been moments where you thought, yeah. But to have this evolve so quickly, and with, the self-described misfits, it's beyond description. It's truly.
It's a bad news Bears, right? It's the bad news Bears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this, Bill. When you were, and I asked Don Fischer this earlier, but I want you to really think about this, okay? And I read, I know that you have a dear friend that also was driving in, an hour per game 1,000 times over the course of 50 years, whatever it might be. But as you were sitting there watching it, Bill, and the confetti's flying through the air, and Kurt Signetti's holding up that trophy, and Fernando Mendoza's like spewing spit everywhere and singing songs on national television, and everybody's soaking it in. Bill Benner thought of who?
I thought of all my close friends who have gone through this with me, including the person that I mentioned to you in a text last week, who have gone through the low moments, who have hung in there, we've enjoyed the tailgates, we've found fun we've found light even in the darkness, and so I thought of my pals, and I'll get emotional too. I thought, of course, she was standing next to me, and so we're hugging. I thought of my wife, who was endured my passion for IU football, who's sat there next to me in miserable weather and sunshine and hot, and watched us lose another game and wondering why the hell are we doing this? Don Fischer mentioned him. I did think of Terry Hebner, because the person that I quote more often than not when it comes to IU football, Hep's famous quote was, "If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." My wife has heard that quote hundreds of times, and Kurt Signetti thought we could, even when we thought we couldn't. And now he's gone out and proven it with these guys who have bought into this program, who have bought into this belief, and now here we are headed toward the number 1 ranked team in the country, headed toward the Rose Bowl, and hopefully beyond.
Now, Bill, as a fan, you have to ask this: do you have a preference whether it's Alabama or Oklahoma?
No, I don't care. I'll line them up.
Bring them on, right?
Line them up. I don't care who it is. I think Indiana can win. I think, again, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I think Indiana can beat Alabama, Oklahoma. I think they can beat whoever comes out of the other bracket. I think this team can win the national championship and truly, truly shock the entire world once again.
It would be. I can't even imagine it if they were to win it all. It truly is. Somebody pointed this out to me, Bill. There is no way in God's green earth times 1,000 lifetimes that I ever would have guessed that Indiana football would win the Big Ten football, title game championship and go into a college football playoff before Indiana would win a Big Ten basketball tournament.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's another astounding fact that this football program, and I believe in DeVries, and I think he's going to get the basketball program. But yeah, I mean, you can't read any national publication that doesn't refer to Indiana's basketball background.
Right.
Every football story refers to Indiana as this quote unquote basketball school, and now that has changed for the moment. Hopefully, it will become a basketball and a football school again.
Bill, we'll see you tomorrow night. I look forward to it. I have mentioned before on numerous occasions that to me, I certainly understand the fly-on-the-wall nature of the dinner that you put on and the fact that I'm just kind of like I'm a plus one. But nonetheless, it is great fun. Chap just talked about how much he looks forward to it as well, and I look forward to it. And we'll have to buy you an extra celebratory drink tomorrow night for Indiana.
In celebration and memory of our late great pal Robin Miller, my dearly beloved brother David, who would have loved this moment so much. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow night, Jake, and glad you're part of the group.
Bill, we'll see you then, and go Hoosiers.
Go Hoosiers.
Bill Bitter joining us. Java House, Peel and Port guest line. Indiana was a great story. There were two not-so-great stories when it comes to football in the state. And as I mentioned off the top at 1 o'clock, Tale of Two Cities. We'll get back into that next. This is the theme song right now for Notre Dame football.
Not just Notre Dame.
And this is the theme song on West 56th. I'm not sitting here trying to forecast doom and gloom. I don't even know that I need to forecast it. It is just the reality. And the reality is that the Colts are in a world of hurt because they have no quarterback and now they have no first-round pick in the next 2 years. And they have players that are going to be aging and some contracts that are up. And it is hard-pressed to think that they are going to be able to even get into the playoffs this year. They have lost 3 in a row and 4 or 5, sorry. And, yeah, the playoffs are still within play for them. But Riley Leonard, nothing against him, is going to be the quarterback. The school in which he departed last year or came out of, Notre Dame. Obviously, he had played at Duke as well. But, they electing not to even go to a bowl game because they were omitted from the college football playoff. And I certainly understand the frustration from Notre Dame fans about that. I said myself, I think they're one of the 8 best teams in college football. But there's a reason they were left out. We'll get into that, and we'll talk about the tale of 2 franchises, 1 city, 3 franchises, 1 state next.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Tonight's the night we'll make history.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
And Mendoza takes the snap, wants to throw it, fires it down the field. It's for Elijah Surratt. He makes the catch. Touchdown! Elijah Surratt, 17-yard pick for a TD. And Indiana's back on top.
'Cause I'll take any risk to tie back the hands of time.
Fernando takes it, back to throw, fires it down the field, and it is caught! Charlie Becker again! What a catch!
I know you feel these are the worst of times.
Daniel Jones is down. Daniel Jones can't even make it over to the sideline to be looked at.
He is seated on the turf, and he just slammed his helmet to the grass. An unfortunate update as Daniel Jones remains in the Colts locker room. He has been ruled out with an Achilles injury.
Our memories of yesterday will last a lifetime.
They're at the 18-yard line where they'll snap it to. It'll be a 28-yard field goal. Here's the snap. Fielding kicks the ball. It is wide! It is wide! Wide to the left! He missed it! And Indiana will take over the football! Saying back to throw again. Pressure comes, rolls to his right. Tries to run with it, throws it down the field. It is tipped up in the air, and that's the ball game right there. Indiana wins! Indiana has beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes, the #1 team in the country. The Hoosiers have beaten the Buckeyes, and Indiana is going to the college football playoff, and they're going to get a bye. Unbelievable!
These are the best.
That's how it sounded over the course of the weekend. Starting with Saturday night at Lucas Oil Stadium, Indiana, the Big Ten champion. The #1 seed in the college football playoff, Don Fischer on the call. You heard from Kurt Signetti from when he was first hired. Google me. I win. And he has done that as the Hoosiers now are the champions of the Big Ten and head on to the Rose Bowl on January 1st to take on Alabama or Oklahoma. Now, it is in fact, like Charles Dickens said in The Tale of Two Cities, it is the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epic of belief. Kurt Signetti had that belief, right? And incredulity, that meaning a disbelief. And for certain, even though it was, as Charles Dickens said, the season of light, talking about Indiana and this new horizon they've reached, it was also the season of darkness perhaps for the Colts. Because what we now know is this. You heard Matt Taylor, you heard Lara Overton on the Colts radio network, and Daniel Jones, the injury in Jacksonville. Eddie Garrison, if we could, please, the breaking news sounder. It is now official. Daniel Jones, in fact, does have a torn Achilles. He is officially done for the season for the Indianapolis Colts. And in fact, these are two teams in two different directions, two storylines that are massive storylines here on this Monday. Good afternoon to you, Jake Query, along with Eddie Garrison here on Query and Company. And I talked about, from the IU standpoint, what you saw in that game. And I know Ohio State can sit here and say, well, the Buckeyes, I mean, you know, they got bigger things to worry about. They got bigger fish to fry. They're coming off Michigan. That was their big priority. Okay. Keep in mind that the last time that Ohio State won the Big Ten championship, they only got in because they changed the rules in mid-season because it was the COVID year to prohibit Indiana from going in and playing in it because they wanted Ohio State the opportunity to go into the college football playoff. I get it. But they needed a tweak. That's how long it's been since they've won the Big Ten title. It's not like this is a fait accompli that they do that every year. Usually they lose to Michigan and can't even get to that opportunity. Indiana came out. All we heard about going into that game, all we heard about, The Ohio State front four. Mendoza's never seen a defense like Indiana's. Indiana's going to be quaking in their boots. And listen, I love the receiving core of Ohio State. But what do we hear from everybody? Oh, man, different cylinder. Well, just wait. This offense is unbelievable. And you know what? Indiana's defense was the storyline of that game. Indiana flat out punched Ohio State right in the mouth and kicked their damn teeth in. And Ohio State, for the first time this season, tasted their own blood and had no idea how to react to it. You can tell me till the cows come home that Ohio State sandbagged it. You can tell me that Ryan Day didn't want to show and open his whole playbook. Maybe that's true. I don't know. And maybe, in fact, if they meet in the national title game, Ohio State beats them by 21 points. All I know is on Saturday, there was one team that went out there, took a huge hit early in the game to their quarterback. Everybody was sitting there saying, holy cow. Holy cow. It was the season of light, and now it's the season of darkness. Because as Indiana fans were sitting there and looking at it and watching it, they were thinking it was going to be a winter of despair, like Charles Dickens said in The Tale of Two Cities, because Mendoza was laying there on the turf, and yes, his younger brother comes in for a play, right? And the whole time you're saying to yourself, this went from belief to incredulity in the sake of one play, just like it says in that book. But Indiana comes back, punches Ohio State right back in the mouth, and wins in an epic game. Now, as for the Colts, I'm not saying that we're at the point now that this is a winter of despair, but it's starting to feel that way. And for Chris Ballard, who just a month ago we were talking about, like, you've got to extend it now, he and Shane Steichen, this holy trinity of Steichen, Ballard, Daniel Jones, symbiotic nature, general manager, quarterback, all of it, right? But yesterday was a really bad day for Chris Ballard. It was. I'm not trying to kick a guy when he's down. But when they were 7-1, we were rightly and understandably giving Chris Ballard his flowers. Hey, everything's worked out. All the buttons pushed, we're working. But I go back to this. I talk a lot about precedent. And when Daniel Jones was on the field, and I was at Googman House Brewing yesterday for our Franciscan Health November celebration men's health fair, and it was awesome. Those that came out, thank you for coming out. It was a great turnout, great show, good seeing everybody, and getting health screening done. And everybody's sitting there watching, and all of a sudden, Daniel Jones, you see him banging the field and banging his helmet and trying to walk and sitting back down. And I thought of two things instantly. Like many of you, I thought of Tyrese Halliburton in Oklahoma. Holy cow, are we cursed? Is it the curse of cutting Peyton Manning? What is it with this town? Can't have nice things. Except for Tale of Two Cities, best of times and worst of times. The best of times had happened just the night before, right there in the Colts home stadium with Indiana. But to focus on the Colts, as I was watching that, I thought to myself, there's something about the turn of luck, which made me think of Andrew Luck. And it made me think of precedent of where I think what we're seeing now, we've seen before. And that's why it was a bad day for Chris Ballard. Because when Andrew Luck had his rookie year, and I remember it. I covered it. I did the Reggie Wayne show then. We did a show with Reggie Wayne I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday night. And yes, the year started out with terrible news of Chuck Pagano's illness, and then Bruce Arians coming in as the interim head coach. But Bruce Arians and Andrew Luck had this weird symbiotic thing where every button Bruce Arians pushed, Andrew Luck was able to respond. And Andrew Luck's a generational talent, no doubt about it. But suddenly, the Colts found themselves in position where they were exceeding expectation. And that caused the Colts to make a huge error. And Jim Irsay, rest his soul, I think was the driving influence of this, even though Ryan Grigson was the one that kind of was labeled with it. But what the Colts did and where they erred then, and the precedent that we saw for yesterday, was this. The Colts when Andrew Luck had immediate success as a quarterback, didn't allow it to organically grow. They didn't build organically the pieces before him in terms of an offensive line and get him young, same age as he wide receivers, not one, but like multiple. And they went out and they pushed all in too early. And over the course of a season or two, they went out and they signed Gosder Sherlis and Eric Walden and Ricky Jean-Francois and LaRon Landry. And they got Andre Johnson and they got Frank Gore and these guys that were like in, literally it was 1 a.m. past midnight of when they turned into a pumpkin. And the Colts mortgaged their future for an immediate payoff. And it blew up on them. And you saw what happened with Andrew Luck. With Daniel Jones, the Colts started 7-1. Everything was working perfectly. It exceeded expectations. It was this incredible storyline, and it was this symbiotic nature between coach and quarterback. And then the general manager and Chris Ballard got his flowers because it was like, man, you know what? He built an offensive line. He did the things. This is paying off. This is a good roster. And then where I think they erred, and I understand it. I don't think it was egregious, but we can look back and say it was bad. When they made the trade at the deadline for Sauce Gardner, a corner, and a very, very good one, and may still well be a fabulous player that is Deion Sanders and Bob Sanders wrapped into one for this town, and fans will love him. But they traded 2 first-round picks to get him. They pushed all in. And I think they went too aggressive too early, and I'll give Chris Ballard this much credit. They have not yet signed Daniel Jones to a big extension. Can you imagine the additional buzzkill of yesterday if they had just signed Jones to a 4-year, $130 million deal? They can get out of it now if they need to because he's a free agent at the end of the year. And what we now know is next year already big time in question. At the very least, he's not actively running around making throws until week 1 of the season next year.
Yeah, it's about a 9-month recovery, which would put it up against the start of the year. Yeah.
Right. And that's just to get out there and throw. But now you're in a real predicament. You're in a real hurt. Because where do you go at quarterback now? You have Anthony Richardson, who has the orbital bone fracture and hasn't even gotten back into the point of being able to run through contact or even think about it at this point. And there's only 4 games left. So that's probably not going to be the case for this year. You have no idea what that availability is going to be next year. And in addition to that, because a lot of times in pro sports, believe me when I tell you this, a lot of decisions are made when it comes to coaches or franchise players, not based on what happens when that player comes in, but rather how it looks when you've got to then depart from it. And with Anthony Richardson, who you've already pretty much turned the page on, if you then go back to it and say, he's our guy next year, what if he plays well? What if he starts to show some glimpse? Then all of a sudden, do you have to re-sign him and you're back into the situation that you probably were trying to walk yourself away from? Or you could say, we'll develop Riley Leonard. Okay. At that point, Alec Pierce is going, yeah, I'm a free agent. I'm probably out of here. And Michael Pittman Jr. is going, I got 1 year left on my deal. Do I really want to be around for the development year 2 of a guy that is heading into year 3 that's learning on the job? DeForest Buckner, all kinds of players. Quentin Nelson, a lot of them become free agents. Or you can go out and sign yourself a quarterback for next year. Aaron Rodgers, the ghost thereof, the drama that comes with it. How'd it work out for Pittsburgh? Kenny Pickett in his widow hands. He might be the best one available. Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco, Gardner Minshew. The hell, let's bring back let's see what Matt Ryan's doing.
Phillip Rivers.
Dadgummit. You know, I mean, where do you turn?
Dadgummit.
So then you say, well, then you draft one. And that's what I mean when I say they erred, because they sent not 1 but 2 first-round picks out already. And they don't make a first-round pick over the next 2 years. And the NFL is not like the NBA. You don't just turn around to Jonathan Taylor and go, who wants him? Send us a first-round pick. Marshall Faulk got you a third and a fifth. I know Sauce Gardner got you 2 number ones, but there's a reason why everybody's like, whoa. There weren't a lot of teams willing to give up 2 number ones for Sauce Gardner. And Sauce Gardner's a wonderful player, don't get me wrong. But he wasn't a player they needed. It was a bad day for Ballard, not just because of all those things, but because Trevor Lawrence yesterday dropped back 30 times, and Trevor Lawrence never once was rushed. Trevor Lawrence never once was hit. Trevor Lawrence never once was sacked. And what's the area that Chris Ballard has worked more tirelessly and more adamantly, repeatedly trying to fix but pass rush? And Liatu Latu didn't get to the quarterback. And Kwity Paye didn't get to the quarterback. And I realized DeForest Buckner, we know the situation there. But it was a bad day all the way around. Because the Colts now, and then they got to go home and they got to watch Houston come back and beat Houston and beat Kansas City. So they are in a world of hurt. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. That's sports in Indianapolis right now. And then you get to the other team. You get to the other team in the market when we're talking about football. Not Purdue. Not Marion. We know what happened there. Not UIndy, who, by the way, great season for them and Coach Keevers, but they were knocked out last weekend. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And people, listen, I get, to quote Ted Lasso, people give me all kinds of guff because, like, we don't do enough for Notre Dame, whatever else. Notre Dame is not an Indianapolis market team per se. They are in Indiana, but they are a national brand. But I understand that they have a large fan base here. And they're a national brand. And we haven't really gotten into this, but for the college football playoff rankings, in 1990, Notre Dame signed a contract exclusive with NBC. In 1990. It paid him $38 million. Holy cow. $38 million Notre Dame's getting from NBC. Why in the world would Notre Dame ever join a conference? You can watch Notre Dame on national television no matter where you're from on NBC, and they're getting $38 million. They can go and recruit a kid from Corona del Rey, California, Fairbanks, Alaska, Savannah, Georgia, Reading, Pennsylvania. They can, any of those guys, and say, your mom and dad, your high school coach, your best friend, your high school girlfriend, they can all watch you every Saturday if you come play for Notre Dame because we're on NBC. $38 million they're paying us. And so if you're Notre Dame, you're saying, why in the world would we join the Big Ten or the ACC or the Big East or the Big 12 or the Big 8 or whatever conferences existed 30, 40, 35 years ago, right? $38 million a year. Since then, Jim Delaney at the Big Ten said, you know what? I'm going to start a television contract. I'm going to start a network. Call it the Big Ten Network. We're going to air nothing but Big Ten games. The Big Ten Network eventually is going to get in partnership with Fox Television. And the Big Ten, because of this network, guess what? We can actually go to, if you are the University of Minnesota and you're recruiting a kid from Corona del Rey, California, or Reading, Pennsylvania, or Fairbanks, Alaska, or Savannah, Georgia, or anywhere in between, no worries. You can tell them now you can watch your kid play every week because if they're not on a network otherwise, they're going to be on the Big Ten Network or on streaming or any other such thing. And because of that, the Big Ten then grew itself even more. And they got into the New York market and the D.C. market and the L.A. market and the Pacific Northwest market. And now the Big Ten Network and the Big Ten ubiquitous. And guess what? NBC, who paid Notre Dame $38 million in 1990, thus causing Notre Dame to say, we never need to join a conference. And they didn't back then. NBC now pays the Big Ten $350 million a year. Staggering money, especially when you consider that doesn't even buy them the top games in the Big Ten because those games are prioritized elsewhere in the Big Ten Network, within the Fox Television Network, and et cetera, as part of the deal that pays the Big Ten $7 billion, with a B, billion dollars over 7 years. And the Big Ten tried endlessly years ago to get Notre Dame. Come to us. Come to us. We'll get you money. We're good. We got NBC. We're linked to them. Okay. Then the College Football Committee, the athletic directors, the different conferences, the ACC, the Big East, they all went to Notre Dame. Because, yes, Notre Dame is the biggest brand in college football with the biggest recognition and automatic fan base due to, let's be real here, not just their football tradition, which is outstanding, but their understandably impressive and, naturally historic theological tie. You're a Catholic kid growing up in Pennsylvania, California, Nevada, you like Notre Dame. So Notre Dame continued to say, we don't need to join a conference. We got our own television network. We got our own deal. So does now everyone. And so eventually, even though Notre Dame was a big enough brand with a big enough tradition and a big enough marketing draw that leagues definitely wanted them. But eventually the ACC, the Big East, the Big Ten, all of these leagues, they basically grew to resent Notre Dame's defiance in joining the party. And they told Notre Dame repeatedly, that's fine. If you want to be on your own, if you refuse to play at the big kids' table, if you refuse to sit down with everybody else, that's fine. But just know this. Just know that the day is going to come when you need to have some sort of a wild card in your hip pocket as a tiebreaker to get you into a party we're going to have. And your television contract that paid you $38 million 35 years ago, yes, it's more than that now, don't get me wrong, but that television contract is no longer going to buy you out. It's no longer going to bail you out. We are imploring to you, Notre Dame, we are begging of you, and we are making emphatically clear, you need to join a conference. You need to join a conference. If you want to stand on your own and do your own thing and build your own schedule, that's fine. If in 2026 you want to play three road games next year, 3. They go on the road 3 times next year. If you want to do that, Notre Dame, that's fine. But just know that if it ever comes down to it, where we have a situation where in the playoff rankings, you are in discussion with a team or 2 or 3 about who's going to get the last 2 or 3 spots, you better have that wild card of what we've been telling you to do forever in your hip pocket. And if you don't, you're going to get left out in the cold. I'm not saying that that is the right approach from them. I'm not saying that they're justified in that approach. What I'm saying to you is that is absolutely 100% a factor in why Notre Dame did not hear their name called yesterday, and a playoff ranking that has James Madison in, that has Indiana number 1, that has Alabama with 3 losses in. Because when it came down to it, they had their chance then to finally say, how you like us now? Because Notre Dame forever in their eyes, I'm not saying it's right, I'm simply explaining it to you. Notre Dame forever in the eyes of the College Football Committee, Notre Dame, every time they tried to dance with them, said, we don't need to do that. We're good. We're going Stag. And now, finally, Notre Dame wanted to come to the prom. And the prom selection committee for the homecoming court said, we're good. We're going to go Stag. It's petty, but it's reality, and that's where it stands.
I think the biggest gripe that Notre Dame fans should have is the fact that Alabama did not get any sort of punishment for losing the way that they did. Like, you look at last season, SMU, Penn State, Iowa State, Texas, all played in their conference championship game, all lost. SMU dropped 2 spots, Penn State 1 spot, Iowa State 2 spots, Texas dropped a spot. In 2025, Virginia loses in its conference championship game, they drop 2 spots. Ohio State obviously drops a spot. BYU drops a spot. Alabama, no change after losing in a game where they had -2 rushing yards.
Okay, here's the thing, and Eddie, I agree with all that. I'm playing devil's advocate. Alabama has 3 losses, but their 3rd loss came to a team. Here's the thing. by watching Georgia dominate the SEC title game, there is oddly, and I know this sounds weird, it somewhat helped Alabama because of the fact that Alabama had beaten Georgia. Right? So, like, it strengthens their best win supporting case. Now, I'll tell you the one, there is a team out there.
Do you have some breaking news, Jake?
Go ahead, hit the sound.
So Shane Steichen currently meeting with the media confirmed what Adam Schefter reported at the top of the hour, that Daniel Jones will be out the rest of the season with a torn Achilles. Shane Steichen just also revealed that Riley Leonard is dealing with a knee injury and his status for Sunday in Seattle is in question.
So that would put Brett Rippon at this point as the only quarterback on roster that would be available.
And the emergency quarterback would be Tyler Warren, yeah.
Now, there is a team, we got to get into that, and then there's a team also that I think actually may have the best argument, not named Notre Dame, as to what happened with the college football playoff, and it dilutes Notre Dame's argument a little bit. I'll get to that, and we'll get into this complex developing quarterback situation next. Okay, I want to get back into the college football discussion. My buddy Nick Harmon, who I love, says, this is ridiculous head-to-head with Miami. You can't tell me it matters now when it didn't with Notre Dame and Florida State in 1993. Yeah, man. I mean, that was 32 years ago in a completely different system. I love Nick. Completely different system, though. That's not me. I'm just the messenger here. I'm just the messenger. But with a college football committee, it is completely different in terms of the way that they weigh things versus the way that they weighed them 10 years before today's seniors were born. Eddie, if you could, please, the breaking news sounder. I want to get back into the college football discussion, but there is more news from West 56, correct?
And the hits just keep on coming. Already Daniel Jones out for the year with a torn Achilles. Riley Leonard dealing with a knee issue. I think the exact term that Shane Steichen used was knee soreness, but will, quote, hopefully be available on Sunday. Braden Smith is in the concussion protocol, and Charvarius Ward is back in the concussion protocol.
I'm telling you, Charvarius Ward is the one that, to me, is – we played that clip last week.
It would be the third time this season he'd be in the protocol.
If I'm Mooney Ward, I mean, at some point you get to the point where you're like, okay, 3 in a year, I'm good. I get it. I get the competitive nature, the money, all of it. As a human being, I'm just saying, that's troublesome. And concussions are like caution flags in racing. They breed. One becomes I'm not a doctor, but things for the Colts now. So if you are just joining us on the program,
where have you been?
That means Daniel Jones, Achilles confirmed torn. Done for the year. Riley Leonard, his backup. Monitoring a knee situation day-to-day, if you will. Anthony Richardson, who normally would be the backup. On injured reserve, fractured orbital bone, not yet back to the point of even going through motion or practice. Charvarius Ward, concussion protocol, third time. Braden Smith. Did you say concussion protocol for Braden Smith?
Yes.
And we are awaiting word as to whether or not Alec Pierce goes into that protocol.
He was not on the list of injury updates from Shane Steichen.
And with no first rounder this year or next, and there are question marks around the Colts and just the how quickly this has turned. How quickly this has turned. Literally, this season for the Colts seems to have done a 180 that is also, to some extent, I guess, the equally like disbelief of how different it looks over the course of, say, than a month ago, like the Colts or like IU from 2 years ago to now, in the opposite direction. Let me give for you, Eddie, when it comes to the college football playoff discussion, I'm going to give you 3 teams, okay? Matter of fact, I want to do it this way. Somebody call in right now at 239-1070, and I want it to be a Notre Dame fan. And I don't mean this to pick on Notre Dame at all. I've said repeatedly, I think Notre Dame is one of the 8 best teams in the country. But just the way that this works, 239-1070 right now, if you are a Notre Dame fan, I want you to call in because we're going to do a blind taste test. I'm not trying to set you up here. I literally am going to do a blind taste test where we're going to line up and I'm going to read off 3 things, and I want you to tell me which of these is the one that you think should be in. But you got to be a Notre Dame fan, okay? So right now, Eddie's manning the phones, and we're going to bring one on, okay? And I'm going to read off the resume of 3 teams, and you got to pick one. Okay, who do we have here, Eddie? Eddie's lining them up here. Cameron calling in. We'll get to the Achilles question in just a second, Cameron, okay?
We got Jesse.
All right, Jesse. Uncle Jesse, what's up? You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you a Notre Dame fan, Jesse?
Yeah, I'm a huge Notre Dame fan.
Turn down your radio, Jesse.
Yeah.
All right, you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, I'm going to read you the resume of 3 teams, and you've got to pick one of them you think should be in. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Team number 1, They have an ESPN strength of schedule of 22. They have a strength of record of 9. I don't necessarily understand what the difference between those two is, but these are metrics they use, okay?
Yes, sir.
Played in their conference championship, and they have 2 losses, okay? One of their losses to a conference champion.
Okay.
That's team number 1, okay?
Yes.
Team number 2, strength of schedule of 44, a strength of record of 13. Did not play for a conference championship and has 2 losses. Both teams they lost to, one of the teams has 4 losses, the other has 2. That's team number 2.
Okay.
Team number 3, strength of schedule of 45, strength of record of 14, did not play for a conference championship, and lost to 2 teams, both of which have 4 losses. Of those 3, which one is most impressive to you?
I'd say 1, but I know which teams you're talking about.
But on the blind taste test, which of those 3?
It would be number 1.
That's BYU.
Yep.
That's BYU. BYU, and the reason I asked it, Jesse, and I appreciate you partaking here, okay, and put it out there. The reason I say it is because we can sit here and talk till the cows come home about Notre Dame and Miami, but BYU is the one on the blind taste test that actually jumps out the most at you, and you say, that might be the one that got the biggest screw job. Cameron wants to talk Achilles. What's up, Cam?
Hello. Unfortunately, in the past, I believe, 16 months, Indiana athletes have had 4 torn Achilles. Wiseman, Jackson, Halliburton, and now Jones. So, given the importance of the upcoming weeks, I am formally offering myself as human sacrifice for protection purposes.
Now, hold on. Say that one more time, Cameron.
I am formally offering myself as human sacrifice for protection purposes.
Okay, so please elaborate on what it is that you're offering.
You may take each of my Achilles tendons for protection of a certain Heisman candidate. I am not going to name names and jinx a man, but we all know that we need strong Achilles tendons for the next month and a half.
Okay, so what you're saying is this. If hypothetically or theoretically you are someone who might be having to go to New York for an award trophy presentation, and you have to basically not do anything in terms of a game until January 1st, what you're saying is sit on the couch, keep your legs elevated, and if something happens, call Cameron, right?
Correct.
Okay, Cameron. Listen, Cameron, here's the thing. Where were you in Oklahoma in the middle of in the summertime, buddy?
I wish I would have been this smart 6 months ago.
Well, foresight is important. Let me tell you something. Foresight's important. And that's the thing about the Colts, for example, that becomes a challenge, because when you look at foresight, it is bleak. They said in A Tale of Two Cities, the theme for today, right? The theme for today. It was the time of bright light, and it was the time of great darkness. And unfortunately, that bright light for the Colts was at 7-1, and now all of a sudden, the light has dimmed significantly. Eddie, we had mentioned that, I think it was last week, we were going down the DEFCON chart. DEFCON 4, DEFCON 3, 2, 1, etc. And DEFCON 1 means, I think Mike Chappell said, what the heck was that noise? What are we doing over here?
I just smacked my hydro flask. That was it.
Okay. DEFCON 1, Mike Chappell said, is lean over and kiss your rear goodbye, right? So based on that, I would like to know what DEFCON we're at. What you have right now, it's kind of like a little bit of Dumb and Dumber here. I don't mean the Colts are Dumb and Dumber, but it feels kind of like that, where it's like, we're driving around, we're losing our money, our pets' heads are falling off. So if you're the Colts, you have your starting quarterback out for the year with an Achilles injury.
Mm-hmm.
You have the backup quarterback who was formerly your starter out indefinitely with a fractured eye socket.
Yep.
You have your rookie quarterback that had to play and did okay for you in Jacksonville, questionable now with a knee injury. You have your high-ticketed and very good corner that you signed in the offseason in concussion protocol for the third time this year, a place where he was put on IR previously. You have your other corner that you sent not one but two first-round picks to New York for, along with A.D. Mitchell, out not on IR, but out theoretically for another 2 weeks. You have your right side of the line dinged up with a player in concussion protocol, offensively speaking. You had no pass rush whatsoever on Trevor Lawrence. And you have a wide receiver that we thought might go into concussion protocol today, but is not. But he is having a breakout year and is also in a contract year, and now has no idea who would be throwing him the ball next year if he decides to re-sign in Indianapolis as opposed to going elsewhere. And you have a defensive end that was already on IR who is probably your best player. And that's where things stand. So other than that, things are going okay, right?
I would say so. That's probably, DEFCON 4. I'm just
and
kidding.
You've lost 4 of 5 and 3 in a row.
That's like DEFCON -3.
It is time for the crossover, brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website. You heard me mention that, 317-353-2141. J&V is with us yesterday. John, that was a lot of fun yesterday, getting a chance just to meet with and see some of our listeners, the game notwithstanding in terms of the results, but seeing everybody getting their chance to get screened for Franciscan Health and make sure everybody was good.
Yeah.
A lot of fun yesterday.
It was, too, and a great event, and we've been doing this now for the past couple of years, and saw a lot of people, a lot of friends of ours over there, and that was awesome. I think I have a solution. I heard one of your callers here a moment ago, Jake. How about if the Colts bring Matthew Broderick in to bang the anvil on Monday night, and he plays tic-tac-toe against Chris Ballard beforehand to try to get us off of DEFCON 1?
That's exactly
you think we can do that?
That's pretty much. I mean, that's honestly about where it's gotten,
now,
is it not?
I'm bringing seriously. I mean, that's a way you can joke about this, because this is a tremendous joke. This whole Achilles epidemic we have around here, just injuries in general, it's a big joke. So why not pay Broderick some cash, bring him in, he can bang the anvil on Monday night and play Chris Ballard, or maybe even Carly in a game of tic-tac-toe, or tic-tac-toe in this case. Sorry, that's a game show.
Yeah,
and see if we can't get Whopper to call the missiles off here.
By the way, who was the in tic-tac-toe, not War Games, but tic-tac-toe, who was the host of tic-tac-toe? Is Gene Rayburn always the safest guess? Wink Martindale. Yeah, there you go.
Wink Martindale, not the defensive coordinator of Michigan. Different.
That's right.
Wink Martindale altogether.
You were at Twin Peaks in Castleton, correct, John?
Mm-hmm. I am, and we've got a lot to talk about. Hey, by the way, shout out to IU fans. And, Jake, I have an IU Yeti cup made by Spencer Thompson of Thompson Furniture down in Columbus for you on Thursday. I have a Reds Yeti for Eddie Garrison, and I tried to guess what you guys are all fans of on our staff here, and I've got a bunch of them that I'm going to bring in coming up tomorrow. I think that's our final day, right?
That is awesome.
In that studio tomorrow?
That's TBD, is it not?
Oh, I haven't heard. Is it minute by minute? I'm not sure. I just I'm going by what I've been told. No.
I mean, we
Should
are
I not
eventually
hold my
moving
breath?
studios. It'll be this week. I don't know that we know yet what day. We'll
I
stick
cannot
with
wait
Wednesday.
until Brett Rippon is going to come in and win 2 out of the last 4, and this team's going to go to the postseason, and he's going to start his quarterback next year. By the way, that's what's happening.
Okay. All right. Well,
just because he hadn't thrown a pass since 2023. All right, do not be alarmed.
Well, John, I'm going to give you 3 hours to make that exact claim, and I'm going to do it for you here in about 5 minutes. How's that?
You got it, pal.
All
See you,
right,
buddy.
John will join us coming up here just about 5 minutes from now. I want to thank Bill Benner. I want to thank Don Fischer today. If you did not hear Don Fischer's comments about what that meant for him Saturday night, and notably his reflections on Terry Hepner, I would strongly advise you to do so on podcast form after 6 p.m. after John. And then again, like I said, Bill Benner, Mike Chappell, thank you as well. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow. I thank you for listening to Query & Company.